Hello. So before this episode gets started, I wanted to talk with you quickly. First, welcome. Hi. Thank you for coming back to my podcast. I'm so happy that you came. The episode today is about cryptocurrency. Now, you may already know a lot. Stick around. Perhaps we answered questions that you wanted to ask and you were not comfortable asking. Or perhaps you don't know and you wanted to know, but you didn't know who to ask. I have someone with a financial background who is very versed in the subject, and he happens to be my son. And he's here to answer our questions as he and I have a talk. So I'm inviting you into my inner circle group, which really just means that you are a friend, a subscriber, or a distant DNA cousin. Listen in to the end. Be prepared to take notes. This requires focus. But why shouldn't we learn? The Bible says something very interesting. It says a lot of things interesting. In fact, the whole Bible is interesting because it's the Word of God. It says that the children of this world are wiser than the children of light. Interesting. So let's learn. Perhaps this is a way for you to invest and multiply your money. Maybe not. At the end, you're going to hear something that Kevin and I discussed. You do want to stay until the end. It's a pretty heady subject, but at the end, I ask a question that I'm going to throw out now before we begin. Is cryptocurrency connected with the mark of the beast? Don't fall out if you use it. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, stick around to find out. I will see you at the end. And our upcoming episode, we're going to be talking all about my book. I have a book of affirmations for children that will be released on Amazon on the 30th of August. You want to get a copy to bless a child in your life, or as a random act of kindness, to be an encourager, a confidence booster, and an inspiration to a young child. So thank you. Let's get started. There are a lot of people in my age group or my generation, and we have no idea about cryptocurrency. And so today I want to learn from you, and I want to share with my friends, and I want us to have a little education or a class on cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency first, and then maybe we'll be able to segue into sustainable farming, because when we did Financial Literacy 101, we were talking about ways to just prepare wisely during a time that we can for the future and for unexpected events. So a little bit about sustainable farming, just talking, and maybe we can even segue into some things from the news and the end times. I don't know how that'll all play out, but I'm inviting my friends to listen in on our inner circle chat. You game? Welcome, friends. I've got Kevin back. He seems to have been one of your favorites. And so Kevin is back. Welcome, my son.
Well, first and foremost, thanks, Mom, for inviting me back. Always a pleasure to talk with you. And yeah, be happy to chat about both topics. I think both are very interesting and will come to the forefront as time goes on, at least in my opinion.
Okay. All right, good. We're starting off to get enlightened, and maybe you will gain more information. Maybe you're already well versed, and maybe some of you are starting from the beginning. And no problem. It's just a chat. We're not claiming to be experts. Kevin is just sharing because I'm asking him questions. And he always says, do your due diligence. He tells me that a lot. So this is just something to begin a conversation, and we're so happy to have you. Where are you? Say it with me. Life and Faith Chats. I am your host. My name is Joy, and this is my son, Kevin, who has an education and his background in finance. What is Life and Faith Chats about? Life and Faith Chat is a podcast, a biblical podcast where we get information from the #1 best-selling book in the world, the Bible. And we also have informed guests to enlighten us to live this abundant life that God tells us about in the Bible that he wants us to experience. So welcome if you're new, if you are a subscriber, distant DNA cousin, a supporter. I'm so happy that you came back. I appreciate you. Remember to thumbs up the video, tell a friend, and if you haven't subscribed yet, it's free. Go ahead and click that subscription button. I appreciate you. Let's get started. Kevin, cryptocurrency. I've got my questions for you. You ready?
Yes.
Here we go. What is crypto?
To put it simply, cryptocurrency is a type of digital or virtual currency that is run or supported by networks of computers that verify transactions and basically offer a public ledger for people to see what's happening on the network. But to sum it up, just a virtual currency that's oftentimes not centrally controlled or run by a particular government or institution.
Okay, so back it up for me. So I'm going to, I guess, do a contrast. Banks are controlled by a government institution. Is that what you're saying?
Well, traditional currencies are run by central banks, which are ultimately branches or arms of a government. So you think about the Federal Reserve System, the central bank of the US, they're behind the flow and the control of money within the US and the US dollar. So that's the currency that they control. The European Central Bank, they control the euro. The Japanese Central Bank, they control the yen. So those are different types of central banks, and they're basically the ones who control the currencies for governments and the governments that they support.
Okay. And you just said that crypto, if I understood you correctly, is controlled by a system of computers?
Yeah, so that's the difference between that and traditional currencies. Traditional currencies do have established institutions like banks and governments back them, versus cryptocurrencies in theory, if you look at the original cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, it isn't controlled by a single entity. What it's considered is to be decentralized, meaning that no central entity has control over it. Rather, the system is handled by networks of computers that are owned by individuals or other institutions. And it's the entire network that works together to back the currency.
Okay. I'm going to go back to something that you said, that you threw in. You said Bitcoin, because my next question was going to be, I've heard about crypto, I've heard about Bitcoin. Is there a difference, or is it the same thing?
There is a difference. So cryptocurrency is just a blanket term that people use to describe all these different types of digital currencies, of which Bitcoin is one type. Now, Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency, or the largest one that most people are aware of. And so because it was the first and the most influential, people tend to use the term synonymously, but there are different terms. So Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency, but not all cryptocurrencies are Bitcoin.
Why crypto?
Why in terms of its existence, or why do people buy it?
Why in terms of how did it come about? And why, okay, and why do people buy it? Why crypto?
Mm-hmm. So it came about as a response to the previous financial crisis. There was an individual, or perhaps a group of individuals, but anyway, I don't want to get into too many details, but simply put, it was the result of distrust with traditional finance. The creator of crypto, whose coin, Satoshi Nakamoto, believe that traditional finance, particularly with central banks and them having control over our financial system and it being flawed, was a problem, and wanted to propose a solution that would create an alternative system that isn't reliant on a central point or entity. So going back to the term decentralized, it was to create a network that didn't have a single point of fault, and that could use sound money principles like a limited supply of money, which is something that traditional currencies don't have, because in theory, central banks and traditional finance can continuously print money versus Bitcoin. There's a limited supply of how many Bitcoins can ever exist. And so there's certain just money principles that this individual or group of individuals believed had been lost within the traditional system.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Recently, there was a large price decline with cryptocurrency. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes. Over the past several months, a lot of coins have lost some value, but that's not atypical, and this is not the first time that's happened in cryptocurrency. It's a very volatile asset class, especially compared to more traditional asset classes. Okay. And so there's been a history of large price swings in either direction, but even in declines, it's not unusual to see a lot of coins lose value.
Okay. All right. So you said that it has happened before. It's not unusual. You also said it's very volatile. So then I have another question. For my friends who are just learning about it, because we talked about investing and doing non-traditional things, just getting information, getting our money to work for us, where to stop the bleed of just working and working, and the money is just sitting there and not working for you, even as you get older. When you said it's never too late, is this a good time to get involved in crypto if this is someone just hearing about it or wanting to know more? Or is it too late to get on? Because I know it became very popular to me very fast, but that's me looking from the outside and not knowing enough. Is it too late to get involved? Or is not a good time? I asked you two questions.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to timing any market, before anyone wants to, get that question answered about is now the right time, the first thing is just being educated, learning more about what you're investing in. That's step number one, figuring out what this thing is it appropriate for you? And that's the next step in the conversation. Because for things like cryptocurrency, and even though I'm a big supporter, I've been very excited to learn more about it, it still is a highly volatile and a risky asset class. And so when you're taking on more risk, the first thing you should do is understanding that risk and also understanding your risk tolerance. So because it is something that has a high likelihood in some cases for you to lose money, always ensure that you're not investing more than you can handle or more than you can afford to lose. And then truly understanding what is the goal of this investing, how does it fit into your overall financial plan and also investment plan. To me, the first step is education. So before we even answer the question, is the right time to invest, get educated, to put it simply. And then the second step is also just understanding risk. If you can stomach the risk or handle certain financial losses, then I think that's step one, and perhaps you could consider it as an investment. But I would rather you ensure that you're in the proper financial place and also understand what you're getting into.
That is a brilliant answer. That is a brilliant answer. I wish I could repeat the points. You're very consistent. I appreciate that. Getting the education, understanding your risk tolerance. I think I've learned that now, where you've said, I don't know if I said it right or backwards, but understanding your risk tolerance and being in the position to be able to afford to take the risk when you're doing something that's very volatile. That's wisdom. That's wisdom. Okay, I have another question. You said you should get educated. How do you, besides me just seeing Google or watching YouTube, what's the best place to get the education if I want to learn more about cryptocurrency?
There are a lot of different sources. I think in general, when it comes to investment knowledge, there's certain websites that I would recommend to everyone. Like one, for example, is Investopedia. It's a fairly well-known website for people
What's
who
the
want to
word? One
learn.
example.
One great website that I think I'd like to recommend to people if they want to learn more about finance or investing in general is called Investopedia.
Investopedia. Okay, and I'm going to put that on the screen. And I'm thinking it's spelled exactly like how you said it. Investopedia. Okay. All right. So that's one website. All
So
right.
you have traditional finance websites like that. They're also, even though YouTube, there's a lot of murky water when it comes to specifically cryptocurrency YouTube channels. There are some channels that focus more so on educational content. And that's what I would advise people for. I would say anytime you have a particular video where people are trying to market a certain coin or investment to you, always remain extremely cautious and guarded. I think it's more about learning, and there are channels that actually explain the various core concepts of cryptocurrencies, like the underlying technology like blockchain. They'll talk about the various ways that networks operate, what algorithms they use, what are the different types of cryptocurrencies. There are some channels out there, and of course I can provide some links that will actually provide educational content as opposed to trying to sell you on something or recommend investments to you.
Thank you. Tell me the one again, blockchain.
So yes, that's a core term when it comes to cryptocurrency. So
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So blockchain or distributed ledger technology is the underlying process of linking together transactions that helps make cryptocurrencies operate.
Okay. Okay. So I have Investopedia, and then maybe you'll give me a link for, and again, we're not trying to endorse, but recommending an educational channel for people to do their due diligence and to get educated before jumping into something. Okay. So on the basis of that, then I guess it answered the question, but I'll still ask. It is a good time if you can afford to, and you have the money to take the risk, if you're comfortable to lose money in case there is a downturn.
I with like anything, I think good time and recommending kind of when to time certain markets is not always the best decision, particularly for investors who are inexperienced. I think for a lot of investors, I wouldn't necessarily focus on whether or not it's a good time or not, but I think a simple strategy would be to perhaps test the waters. Maybe that's using an investment simulator, and they have free investment simulators where you can actually go in and use a virtual money, not your own, to kind of see how things work first. And then also there are other strategies like maybe a programmatic investing or dollar cost averaging, where instead of you're focusing on when's the best time to throw all of your money in, you strategically invest smaller amounts at specific increments of time. And that's how you, in a way, reduce the amount of price volatility of your investments.
Wow. So what's an investment simulator? Is it exactly what it sounds like, where you're testing something, you're practicing, is not it? How do you find an investment simulator?
Yeah, so for a lot of like things like stock market simulators and crypto, I'm not as aware of them, if there are as many, but there should be, and that's something I want to come back to. Maybe I can look that up and verify. But yeah, all it is just online simulators that track actual prices or things that happen within financial markets, and they allow participants to take a virtual portfolio with no real money. It's just all fake money, and you can practice, learn how to trade, learn about the various markets that you're investing in. I think it's always good, especially since money, if you're someone who's very experienced with managing your money or investments, to start off that way, just you can get a kind of sense of basic principles, and you can actually see how you would perform if you made certain investment decisions. And whether Go ahead.
Oh, yes.
And whether good or bad, whether you're portfolio performs poorly or performs well. It's a great way to learn for any investor of any level too. You don't have to just be a beginner. I think even people who have years of experience or wealth of knowledge, it's always good just to test your theories in that type of environment.
Okay, so this is something you can Google?
Yes, a lot of these similarities you can just Google, or the website that I referred to earlier, Investopedia, they do have, I believe they still have a stock simulator that is up and running. And for crypto, I'll have to get back to you. I'm pretty sure there are some out there, but I'll find them.
Investopedia. Okay, let's say there's one for crypto. I know you said you're not too sure yet. Let's say there's one for crypto. How little, or what's the least amount I can invest to do for crypto? And I know I'm putting you on the spot and you don't like that, but.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Okay.
So cryptocurrency is unique, and it depends on the particular coin or token that you're investing in. But the units, or the level at which certain coins or tokens can be divided at can actually extend into fractions of a fraction. So in the case of Bitcoin, there's something, and I don't like throwing a lot of terms out because I do that a lot sometimes when I'm talking about this stuff or just stuff in general, but there's something called a Satoshi. And to put it simply, it is the least divisible unit of Bitcoin. And it's 100 millionths of a dollar. So in other words, it would take 100 million Satoshis to equal one Bitcoin. So you're talking about fractions upon fractions of something. And so it's equivalent to, like, let's just say for the US dollar, most traditional currencies, you have a cent, where it's like, 100 of the things equals one of that particular currency. Bitcoin and most cryptocurrencies go even lower than that. So sometimes you can even invest pennies into these things and still be able to buy an individual unit or a sub-unit of that particular coin or token. So you can invest almost any amount in these currencies, but as far as a recommended minimum, that's up to your personal financial profile. But yeah, as far as divisibility goes, you can invest as little as you want in most of these tokens or coins.
Okay. So this is me doing a bypass of all the sound things you said, because you said if I go to Investopedia, I can learn and do my due diligence. But just to ask the question, because when you're trying to get information, sometimes you get overwhelmed. So my question right now, I'm building up to ask, how would I get started? Let's just say I just wanted to get started. What do I do? Do I need to have someone do it for me? Can I do it by myself? Do I go to the computer and just Google? How do I even get started?
To get started, if you want to start investing within crypto, a lot of it is just looking online. There are a number of exchanges or brokers you can go to open up accounts where you'll be able to buy and sell cryptocurrencies. And as far as whether you can do it by yourself, you absolutely could. I think I personally prefer that method. So I think it's good for any investor to learn how to invest themselves. You don't necessarily have to go to someone else to do it for you, but if you feel comfortable having someone else handle it, you could do that. I would always say exercise caution there too. But yeah, you can do it by yourself. You can do it in a group of people you trust, and where there's certainly other steps you have to take in that form where someone else is working with you, handling your money. You have to be even more cautious. But yeah, there are many different methods. But the first step, or the first place to go, would be to look online and research which verified exchanges or brokers that you could go to have access to buying various different currencies.
Verified exchanges or brokers, but they tell you if they're verified, is what you're saying when you look online.
Yes, there are certain websites or platforms that will give you an idea of which brokers and exchanges to trust. I would say typically, depending on it also depends on where you're investing from. Certain markets or certain exchanges are only able to operate in certain countries, certain areas, and so there are limitations there. And in addition to that, there are so many different methods or places where you can buy it that sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, but I would say it's typically smarter to trust the exchanges that have regulatory oversight or that claim to at least be regulated. That's where it's safer for newer investors. That would be my general recommendation. But yeah, to keep it simple, you can go online and look for certain exchanges or platforms they can use.
Okay. Kevin, it has been fascinating and educational as usual. I appreciate your time and your expertise and just telling us to learn, do our due diligence, but still having you enlighten us. I know that our DNA cousins are happy and learning things. I was taking notes. I really appreciate you. And I'll have the link, and I know that we have Investopedia to find out more information. I had said that we would talk about sustainable farming and segue into the end times, but I already know that we've given some chunked information, some good information. So rather than have an overload, would you please come back, dear?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that we can continue. And apparently I've just gotten you to commit to a part 3 again, without you realizing it and go. But I want to end this way. Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and now let's talk about what I said we end with, the end times, because this is a biblical, well, we are both believers. And a lot of our listeners and subscribers might be curious and listening in. And there's so much going on that is unusual, but it's predicted in the Bible. So is cryptocurrency or Bitcoin the mark of the beast? What do you think? Now, this is me and you just talking. What do you think? That's how I want to end.
Great question. It's something that I've struggled with quite a bit. And I think there are a lot of believers who are investors who have asked similar questions and have certain views on it. In my opinion, it doesn't fit the bill completely. But however, before I offer my opinion, I think the ultimate advice for any believer is ask the Lord yourself, pray, fast, do whatever you need to do, and hear from the Lord. Don't hear from me. I'm a very fallible person. So at the end of the day, regardless of my opinion,
Really?
However, in my opinion, no, it doesn't currently fit the bill. However, it does seem as if the underlying technology and would ultimately, I think, once we move past this initial phase of cryptocurrencies, you have something called CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. I think that is closer and more in line with a mark-like system where you have a digital currency, but it isn't decentralized. Just like traditional currencies, it is controlled by a single authority or entity. And the scary part about that reality is it's taking some of the technological benefits of cryptocurrencies and merging it with traditional systems that have flaws, like, again, centralized control, where you can have potential greater chances of abuse, or things like censorship. And so we're seeing that actually even now, the technology's there. Of course, China is at the forefront when it comes to actually implementing their own version of a CBDC. And I think other countries, even the US, will eventually follow their lead in that way. So I think, to answer your question simply, no, in my opinion, the current generation of cryptocurrencies don't fit the bill fully. However, perhaps the next generation, or eventually some derivative of the current, virtual currencies or DLT technology, you could create a digital system or coin similar to old cryptocurrencies that could eventually fill that whole, mark of the beast system or role.
Okay, so the framework is kind of there, but the framework is there for a lot of things that we might be talking about. The framework is there for a lot of things. You and I got to talk. I like that. I want to dive into that deeper, but we're doing that off camera. Thank you, baby. Thank you, Kevin Eke, for being my favorite guest, for bringing just very good information, great conversation, and in terms of we're talking. And there might be some people who have no idea what we're talking about when we say the mark of the beast. We are talking about a system controlled by a world dictator, leader, antichrist. It is in the Bible. We're not making it up. It's not one of the movies. it is going to happen because the Bible said that it will. So again, we need to do due diligence, and we need to do what Kevin says. We need to pray. And again, we're not saying crypto is, but just thought that that was an interesting way to start. We need to talk about sustainable farming because y'all, I went to Walmart the other night and whole shelves of milk were missing. The people didn't have any milk. What's happening? We need to talk about it. So you have to come back. We'll continue the conversation with Kevin with sustainable farming and still talking a little bit more about the end times. And thank you for joining us. Thank you for being a supporter. God bless you. Enjoy your week. No matter what time you're listening to this, we pray for God's peace and wisdom and word to rule your life. Thank you. See you soon.